Good evening. Welcome to South Asia Newsline. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. Here are the top stories we're tracking for you on Tuesday, the 17th of May. Floods hit India's northeastern Assam state. Relief operations underway. Terrified by attacks, Chinese nationals leave Pakistan. PM Shehbaz assures security. And Sri Lankan Parliament defeats no trust motion against President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. And now for all the details. Floods triggered by heavy rainfall have wreaked havoc in parts of India's northeastern Assam state, affecting thousands of people. Personnel from the State Disaster Response Force were called in on Tuesday for rescue and relief operations and for shifting stranded villagers to higher grounds.
Flash floods triggered by heavy rains wreaked havoc in India's northeastern Assam state on Tuesday, crippling normal life in several villages. Over 200,000 people were affected in around 20 districts due to the incessant rains in recent days, which inundated and snapped rail and road links. Local media also reported at least 5 deaths, as rains also triggered landslides. Personnel from the State Disaster Response Force were called in for rescue and relief operations on Tuesday and for shifting stranded villagers to higher grounds. But some villagers complained of a delay. People in Hojai district were being moved out by the police using local boats as they waited for rescue workers.
हम लोग का एरिया में तो स्थिति गंभीर है अभी तक हम लोग गवर्नमेंट की तरफ से प्रशासन की तरफ से अभी तक हम लोग का जो ये एसडीआरएफ है इमरजेंसी सर्विस है उन लोग को खबर क्या है अभी तक पहुंचा नहीं है नौगांव जो एसडीआरएफ पार्टी है वो लोग पहुंच गया है और हम लोग का जो लोकल इधर का बोट है वो बोट लेके हम लोग जितना सकते हैं तो रेस्क्यू कर रहा है अभी तक.
Annual rainfall is essential in India as rains support 2/3 of the 1.3 billion population living in rural areas who rely on farming. But excessive rainfalls cause problems like floods, landslides and waterborne diseases.
And in news from Pakistan, Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has directed authorities to enhance security of Chinese nationals in Pakistan after multiple reports said that Chinese teachers have left the country weeks after deadly Karachi University bombing that targeted them. At least 3 Chinese teachers and 1 Pakistani national were killed in the bombing claimed by Baloch insurgents.
Pakistan's newly elected Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif on Tuesday directed authorities to enhance security of Chinese nationals working in Pakistan a day after holding a telephonic conversation with his Chinese counterpart Li Keqiang for the first time after assuming office. This came after multiple reports said Chinese teachers have left the country terrorized by a suicide bombing near the Karachi University on April 26 that killed at least 3 Chinese and 1 Pakistani national. The PM's office said that Sharif offered condolences to the Chinese side on the heinous attack and said attempts to harm CPEC, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, are not acceptable at all. Separatist group Baloch Liberation Army, while claiming responsibility for the attack, had warned Beijing to withdraw the CPEC or else attacks will continue. The blast was the first major attack against Chinese nationals in Pakistan since last year when a suicide bomber blew up a passenger bus in northern Pakistan that killed 13 people, including at least 9 Chinese. Ethnic Baloch guerrillas have been fighting the government for decades, demanding a separate state and saying the Pakistan government, along with China, has been unfairly exploiting Balochistan's rich gas and mineral resources.
And moving on, a raging forest fire in Pakistan-administered Kashmir has become a cause of worry among the locals as it is severely affecting the ecology of the region. Residents have lamented the Pakistani authorities have so far taken no action to stop the fire and protect the wildlife.
Locals in Pakistan-administered Kashmir have raised concern over a raging forest fire that is affecting the biodiversity and ecology of the illegally occupied region. They are worried that animals living in the forest area are particularly vulnerable due to the fire and blame that no action has been taken so far by the Forest Department to stop the people who start such fires. Locals have requested the Pakistani authorities to take strict action against forest arsonists and deploy guards to protect the wildlife. They have lamented that there is no proper policy in place to also curb deforestation and infrastructure to mitigate the effects of such calamities.
बड़ी ख़तरनाक यहाँ पे इस वक्त सिचुएशन है। यहाँ पर जंगल वाले की भी तरफ से भी कोई इंतज़ाम नहीं है आग बुझाने का। आग जो लोग लगाते हैं उनको रोकने का भी कोई इंतज़ाम नहीं है कि रोकें, उनको मना करें, उनको पाबंद करें कि इनकी हिफाजत करें।
Locals have now become increasingly intolerant of Pakistani occupation as Islamabad consistently maintains a negligent attitude and ignores even their basic demands.
And in news from Afghanistan, the Taliban has dissolved 5 key departments of the former US-backed government, including the Afghanistan Human Rights Commission, deeming them unnecessary in the face of a financial crunch. Since their return to power in August last year, the Taliban have taken several controversial steps. Despite assurances, they are yet to show moderate stance to ensure rights of girls and women.
Taliban authorities in Afghanistan dissolved 5 key departments of the former US-backed government, including the country's Human Rights Commission, deeming them unnecessary in the face of a financial crunch. Inamullah Samangani, the Taliban government's deputy spokesman, said on Monday. Afghanistan faces a budget deficit of 44 billion Afghanis, or $500 million this financial year, Taliban authorities said on Saturday, as they announced their first annual national budget since taking over the war-torn country last August. Because these departments were not deemed necessary and were not included in the budget, they have been dissolved, but they can be reactivated if needed, Samangani said. Also dissolved was HCNR, the High Council for National Reconciliation, the once high-powered National Security Council, and the Commission for Overseeing the Implementation of the Afghan Constitution. The HCNR was last headed by former Afghan President Abdullah and was working to negotiate a peace between the US-backed government of former President Ashraf Ghani and the then insurgent Taliban. In August 2021, 20 years after invading Afghanistan, foreign forces withdrew from the country, leading to the collapse of the government and a Taliban takeover. The Taliban ruled Afghanistan from 1996 to 2001 with an iron fist and implemented a harsh version of Islamic rule, including banning women from education and work. After taking over last year, the Taliban assured the world they would be more moderate. However, they are yet to allow older girls to restart education and have also introduced rules that mandate that women and girls wear veils and requiring them to have male relatives accompany them in public places.
And moving on to news from Sri Lanka, a no-confidence motion tabled by the opposition against Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa was defeated in the parliament on Tuesday in a comfortable win for the embattled president amidst nationwide protest demanding his resignation over the country's worst ever economic crisis.
A no-confidence motion tabled by the opposition against Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa was defeated in the parliament on Tuesday amidst nationwide protests demanding his resignation over the island nation's worst economic crisis. A total of 119 lawmakers voted against the motion while only 68 voted in its favor, giving the 72-year-old president a comfortable victory. This came after newly appointed Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe said on Monday evening that the country was down to its last day of petrol and warned of tough times in the coming months. He said the country urgently needs $75 million in foreign exchange in the next few days to pay for essential imports. Meanwhile, locals in Colombo were seen waiting in long queues on Tuesday as fuel stations bled dry, despite India offering the debt-struck nation around 400,000 metric tons of diesel.
Where any petrol station you go, there is no fuel. And the people lined up for kilometers and kilometers, right? unable to get the fuel. So how can you run a vehicle, right? Then how can you do your daily day-to-day activities?
Meanwhile, spontaneous protests against rampant inflation and shortages of essentials have continued unabated. Sri Lanka's economic crisis, unparalleled since its independence in 1948, has come from the confluence of the COVID-19 pandemic, rising oil prices, and populist tax cuts by the Rajapaksa government.
And moving on, shares in the Life Insurance Corporation of India slid 6% in their market debut on Tuesday, which gave a fresh setback for the state-owned giant. The share price decline reflects a slump in the broader market since LIC's initial public offering opened for subscription earlier this month.
Shares in LIC, the Life Insurance Corporation of India, slid 6% in their market debut on Tuesday, which gave a fresh setback for the state-owned giant after its IPO initial public offering, while record-breaking, rose far less for the government than initially envisioned. India's biggest insurer and largest domestic financial investor was trading at 887 rupees as of late morning, giving it a market value of around $72 billion and making it the country's fifth biggest company. The share price decline reflects a slump in the broader market since LIC's IPO opened for subscription on May 4.
It's an historic day for us, for all LICians, for the Government of India. As Mr. Pandey rightly said, one of the biggest IPOs in the country. And all of us at LIC are very proud to be part of this event.
Meanwhile, Secretary of Department of Investment and Public Asset Management Tohin Kanta Pandey said it was not correct to judge the stock performance on the listing day.
एक लिस्टिंग डे में कुछ समय की कैसे परफॉर्मेंस है, उसके बेसिस पे किसी स्टॉक के बारे में अंदाजा लगाना ठीक नहीं है.
LIC is the latest in a string of Indian companies that have fallen sharply after listing, as investors look closely at potential profitability and caution valuations.
And scores of youngsters took part in the first ever Hogam sports tournament held in India's Jammu and Kashmir on Monday. The event, organised by the Hogam Federation and the Indian Army, aimed to promote the international game in the Kashmir Valley.
A large number of students from different schools and clubs participated in the first ever Hogam sports tournament in Srinagar district of India's Jammu and Kashmir on Monday, which was organized by the Hogam Federation in association with the Indian Army. This game helps in maintaining physical fitness among boys and girls, as it includes abstracts of different types like run on tires, run under the net, and run with rope tires. It is mainly practiced in the nature in various climatic conditions in forests, mountains, sea and desert areas for the purpose of sport and healthy recreation.
ये फर्स्ट टाइम है यहाँ पे, तो इंशाल्लाह मैं सोचता हूँ कि ऑल ओवर इंडिया ये गेम चूज़ करे, इनको अपनाए, और मैं बहुत ही कोशिश करूँगा इनको क्या ऐसा रिकॉग्नाइज्ड हो जाए इंडिया में, तो बहुत ही फ़ायदा है.
The tournament was held in basic race formats, including a 3-kilometer sprint with about 20 obstacles.
बहुत अच्छी एक्सपीरियंस बहुत अच्छा था, क्योंकि मैंने फर्स्ट टाइम किया स्कूल के बाद एकेडमी के साथ, तो मैं बहुत शुक्रगुजार हूँ यहाँ की फैकल्टी के लिए.
The event was administratively supported by and directed by the China Corps of Indian Army to promote goodwill and friendship with the residents of the region, particularly youth and children. The Hogam Federation is trying to involve more children so that this international game gets popular in Kashmir Valley.
Well, that's all we have for you from South Asia this evening. Now our viewers can watch the show on southasianewsline.com. You can also visit us on facebook.com/SAsiaNewsline and follow us on Twitter @SAsiaNewsline. That's all in tonight's edition. We'll see you same time tomorrow. Good night.